We're gonna take a little stretch break, yeah? Okay, so you guys all wanna just stand up quietly. We're just gonna stretch for a second and then we're gonna get into a little story time. I wanna make sure we're still awake. So we're just gonna stretch up a little bit, okay? Now I'd like to incorporate some meaning and intention into movement. I think our bodies hold a lot of wisdom. So I'm gonna teach you a little move that I created just to humor myself, but hopefully it'll entertain you as well. And it ties in with intention in the sense of, a lot of times we lose track of what's most important, and it's important to stay grounded in our truth, right? So you're gonna stomp to kind of establish your voice, your authority, your truth, your word, okay? So it starts with a stomp. Now there's a lot of clutter out there, there's a lot of messages, there's a lot of things vying for your attention. So you're gonna shake off what's not true, like that, okay? And last but not least, most of us live in our heads, and we don't operate from our heart. This is the most guilty one right here on the stage. And so I always have to remind myself to feel what's in my heart, go within and just get out of my head, okay? So it goes like this. All right, you guys ready? All right. We're gonna make it a little bit more fun. You're just gonna kind of follow me for a second, all right? All right, here we go. Can we get some audio? Turn it up ready? Just turn it up a little bit. With a little intention.
So this is what you meant when you said that you were spent. And now it's time to build from the bottom of the pit right to the top. Don't look back. Packing my bags and giving the academy a rain check.
Because you're probably using your dominant feet right
I
now.
don't wanna let you down.
Try to switch to the other foot.
I don't ever wanna leave this town. 'Cause after all, the city never sleeps at night. It's time to begin.
Follow me.
I get a little bit bigger, but then I'll admit I'm just the same as I was. Oh, don't you understand? I'm never changing who I am. So this is where you fell, and now you're left to sell. The path to heaven runs through miles of
Take a deep
crowded
breath in.
hell right to the top. Don't look back. Turning to rags and giving the commodities a rate check. I don't ever wanna let you down. I don't ever wanna leave this town. 'Cause after all, the city never
All right, I want you guys to go find somebody, look them in the eye for 5 seconds, stay silent, and then give them a hug for 5 seconds.
I'm just the same
Find
as
somebody, give them a hug for 5 seconds.
Oh, don't you understand? I'm never changing who I am. It's time to begin, isn't it? I get a little bit bigger, but then I'll admit I'm just the same as I was. Oh, don't you understand? I'm never changing who I am. This road never looks so lonely. This house doesn't burn down slowly.
Give yourselves a big hand.
To ashes, to ashes.
All right, have a seat.
Isn't it? I get a little bit bigger, but then I'll
I'm gonna take you on a bit of a journey to find your word. And it's really simple, actually. It's 3 questions that we've, after talking to a lot of people, we've kind of distilled down into 3 words that will be most helpful in finding someone's word. And it begins with, who do you want to be? If you think about a virtue that you want more of in your life, and I often advise folks to think about somebody you really admire and just notice what is it that you admire about that person and what's the quality that comes up. So if you guys want to leave your eyes open, feel free. If you want to gently close your eyes, feel free. I want to take you on a bit of a journey right now. Have a bit more music. The first question is, what virtue do you want more of in your life? More music. Take a deep breath in. Let it out. So that's sort of who do you want to be? The next question is, what do you want to have? Think about the biggest challenge in your life right now. First off, give gratitude to that challenge. Because that challenge is there to help you find your truth, your strength, and your purpose. What is it going to take to overcome that challenge? Is it more resilience, more focus, balance? What's the biggest challenge in your life right now? What is it going to take to overcome that challenge? Breath in, let it out. And lastly, what are you most passionate about? What lights you up? What do you want to spend more time on? Is it to create more? To sing, to dance? What do you want to do more of? Breath in, let it out with a big smile. You know, they say a lot of times we can trick ourselves into feeling better by just smiling. So for those that know me, they might be very shocked to have me on stage doing what I'm doing now. I have an MBA, used to work at McKinsey, PepsiCo, at Facebook, was all about the traditional notions of success, having money, retirement, status, etc. And in 2012, I left my time at Facebook thinking I had it made. And my then girlfriend and I went around the world traveling. People were commenting on our photos. You're living the dream. You've got it all set. You must be, it's just amazing. And on the surface, it looked awesome. But deep down inside, I was really conflicted. I wasn't present. I didn't know how to deal with relationships. It was a mess. We were fighting all the time. And then we eventually broke up. And somebody along the way suggested, hey, you might benefit from going to something called the Hoffman process. It's up in Napa. It's a week of time. One of the things they invite you to do when you show up is to surrender your phones for a week. How many of you have ever surrendered your phones for like a day? So that was a big shock. And it was an effort to go within and find our own answers, to understand ourselves better, because it's so easy to get caught up with everything else that's going on and taking that moment to understand what drives ourselves, how we're wired. And they had this framework called the quadrinity, which is there's 4 aspects to self. And when I saw this, I quickly realized that I spent most of my life on the intellectual and the physical, and I had completely neglected the emotional and spiritual for 35 years. And on the first day, they sat us down and they said, "Why are you here?" There was 40 of us. Half these words, I didn't even know what they meant. I kind of had heard them, but I didn't quite understand what authentic meant, abundance, like what is that? This was a whole new world for me, but I was fascinated. And over the course of the next 7 days in this room, we sat there around. My first takeaway was, they had a huge emphasis on I statements. It was all about how I'm feeling and what's true for me. We were told we couldn't talk about our jobs, we couldn't talk about the sports, weather, anything that was external to how we were feeling. And it was basically being in therapy for, actually the way they positioned it was a year of therapy in a week, and I was definitely down with that because I didn't want to have to wait. I was kind of this impatient, need to get it done type A. And they didn't offer any answers, but they offered a lot of questions for each of us to find our own answers. And I thought that was so amazing. I grew up in a household where my parents, they actually kind of had written my life plan. I actually went to med school and dropped out 3 weeks later because they thought that was the only way I would be allowed to be in the family, was to be a doctor. And 3 weeks in, I realized that it wasn't my passion, it wasn't my calling. So I finally had to step up and actually stand in my truth, which is actually I'm more passionate about something else. The second thing that I thought was so beautiful is they created this magical safe space. And they kept saying no cross-talking. We were in these small groups of 8 people, and that meant there was no judgment on each other. What's true for the other person, you don't know what's true for them. No advising, no interrupting. It's so easy for us, and I have to catch myself all the time, which is, someone will say something like, "Oh, my word is trust," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I had that word too," but that would have interrupted that person. And rather than allowing that person to go deeper and really understand what their intention is and what's true for them. And so that was completely mind-blowing and eye-opening for me, that second piece around a safe space. And when we wrapped up the week, we were invited to get up in front of this whole room and declare what we're committed to changing in our lives, and to declare our intention going forward. And so I left this magical week completely blown away and just thinking, oh my gosh, how do I take this week-long experience, $5,000, and bring it to the everyday? I don't have the ability to be there all the time. I have a lot of family and friends who might not be able to attend, but I want to relive this type of experience on a regular basis. So I moved to LA, and I kept asking myself, what do I want to work on? And I had a lot of different offers from different interesting tech companies that would have paid a lot of money, but I couldn't get excited about it. I said, I want to work on something that I felt my world needed more of. And the answer for me was I wanted to have more clarity. I wanted to have more meaningful connections with people, and I wanted to have a sense of community. So I started having these gatherings. You might recognize the gentleman in the middle on the microphone, Mr. Light Watkins here. So I started having gatherings at my house in West Hollywood, and we would do some meditation, some light 2-minute breath, breathing. It wasn't even really meditation. It was just, we paused. We did a little bit of yoga when Light would lead it. Some live music, some movement, some cooking. And then we set up this table where people could make bracelets for each other. And it turned out that really anchored the events. And I remember this one conversation I had with Sarah, who's over here on the right. And I said, Sarah, you don't always have to be at the table. You're a volunteer. Go have fun at the rest of the party. And she's like, no, I really like being here because this is where the best conversations happen. This is the place where I feel like I can really get to know other people. It's no small talk. It's meaningful. And that was quite revealing to me because I hadn't thought of it in that way. And I kept getting, requests for more bracelets. People wanted one for their mom, one for their, loved ones. And then eventually, we started taking some orders. And this was the very first December of 2014 when we had a little small website. And during the holiday season, a lot of people were buying them for their company, actually. This one order came in, and the CEO had seen a bracelet on a friend of mine and said, what is that? I want to get this for everyone in my company. She put in an order for 250 bracelets. I wasn't going to make 250 bracelets myself, so I hired some people, asked them to help out. And what was actually really amazing about that moment was, and this is all kind of, it wasn't planned. The only thing planned was my intention to build community, to have connections and clarity. But we ended up creating a Google spreadsheet because we didn't know how we were going to capture words for 250 people. And these were the responses that came back. And I was completely blown away by what people were willing to share into basically nothing. And it kind of reminded me of hearing how, nowadays, even though we're so connected with our digital devices, I think I read a stat that says 1 in 4 Americans don't have anyone they feel that they can confide in. Like how many of us don't have someone to have that heart to heart? And this process, finding someone's word is an open invitation to go deep, to understand what's really, true for someone. And so I read this and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, wow. I couldn't believe that we could actually take what was happening live, but also make it happen on the internet. So we ended up renting a little space from a warehouse down in Skid Row. And, so we went from someone's living room to now we had a little space. And then all of a sudden, this is January, I'm in the back of a private club in West Hollywood, and I see Jay-Z. And I was like, oh, how often do you get to see someone like that? I wonder if he would like a bracelet. And so I was pretty nervous. And I just walked up and I said, my name is Chris, I have a gift for you. And he was really intrigued. And we ended up having this conversation about his nonprofit, which is the Shawn Carter Foundation, and his mission to provide education for those that are less fortunate. And then he says, hey, I'm having a brunch next weekend. Would you want to come and make some bracelets there? And I was like, I'm pretty sure I can do it, but let me check my calendar and I'll get back. So I called some friends. This is before we had t-shirts. So I had someone print some t-shirts for us. And we were there. And that morning, I gathered everybody. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning. I had everyone arrive to the house. And we did a little bit of meditation. And I said, guys, I have no idea what's going to happen today. It's going to be really interesting. But we're here to serve. And we're here to plant seeds. We're not here to take selfies. We're just here to be of service. And we don't know what these seeds are going to be like when they grow up, but let's just be here to serve. And so Rihanna got the word faith. She actually wanted a couple more for her friends. Beyonce got the word surrender. And nothing really happened. I thought one of them would like tweet about it or put it on Instagram or something, and all of a sudden we would have orders. And then by February, March, our mission was not to be a jewelry company. Our mission was to be a catalyst for meaningful conversations and positive energy. And I was really burned out. I was like, oh, there's no orders. I have to pay for these people. So what are we doing here? And I never really imagined myself being a jewelry maker. So I went off to Bali and spent 3 weeks there doing some meditating, doing some just, hanging out, like looking for my truth, my next step. And by the last night, so this is what was happening in the background, our sales on April 12th was $47 online. So we had 3 people to pay for it. You can kind of do the math, but this thing was losing money very fast. So I come by the 15th, I was like, I think this is done. I think I'm gonna make this a passion project. I'm gonna go do something else. Like I loved making bracelets for people one-on-one, but I didn't think I was gonna keep a team around. We were just gonna shut it all down. It was done. And the very last night on the 15th, when I just got a massage, I distinctly remember I just got a massage, sat down at a restaurant by myself, opened up Instagram, and this is what was in my feed. And I just thought somebody photoshopped it or this is like a prank, but I'm like, wait, this is not right. Like, what is going on? So Kanye had gotten a bracelet 3 months earlier, and the backstory is he actually thought, this is his identity, this is his word, beautify. And I thought to myself, if there was ever a sign to keep going and not quit, this might be it. A year into the project. So, long and behold, as I've already said, this is not a jewelry thing, but this has utility. I've been invited to panels where I'm on stage with a bunch of people that have like Fitbits and other wearables, and I always say, what? In the same way, this over here on the left tells you the time, this on the right tells you what's most important to focus on with your time, right? You receive time on this planet, what are you gonna do with it? What do you wanna focus on? It's an always-on notification of what's most important, and it never needs recharging. So if the bracelet is the fish, if we're going around and helping people, find their clarity and what's important, if we fast forward 2 years, the next big evolution of the project was when we actually made the kit available. And there was definitely a lot of people, when I wanted to do this, they're like, no one's gonna want this, to why would you give away the secret sauce, right? But to me, it's kind of like the coffee in the coffee maker. It's like everyone has a coffee maker at their house. They can do it, it's convenient. You can also obviously go to Starbucks or go to, Blue Bottle and get something made for you. But having this simple set of tools allows you to engage yourself as well as those around you in this powerful process. And when other jewelry companies innovate, they usually innovate by having, people always say, oh, do you want to get a bar, or do you want to get a triangle, or other shapes? And I'm like, well, if you do that, people won't know what you're wearing, and you don't have that community. You lose that. And that's not what we're about anywhere. We're about, the word, the intention, what's behind it. How we innovate is we make it easier for people to make bracelets. So as an example, usually you letter stamp on a metal block that's flat, but then it slips all over, and it's just hard to do. And so we've innovated and provided a round base, for example, that has a little ledge where the string goes. You push it up against the middle, and it's super easy to do. And then we're working on a sticker that makes it even easier. So for us, it's not about being a jewelry company, but it's about being a service project. And I'll just share one story and wrap it up. This was at the Children's Inn at the National Institute of Health, where patients from around the world come because their home country doesn't know how to help them. They have a really, really rare disease, so the NIH takes them in. The director of community there saw an ad for us on Facebook and decided to buy a kit, and has been doing this with patients there, which is really touching. We've seen some that people who are suicidal, they've put something on there like live, because they've chosen to live. We were pretty blown away when we got the next photo. Actually, one more. So they're doing this, the staff are doing it. When we got this, so this is Amani, who's 13. He has the word faith and hope on his bracelet because he has faith in the doctors at the NIH to cure his sickle cell disease, a rare form of it that he has, and he has hope that he's going to get better. And so when the First Lady visited on Valentine's Day, he also stamped the same hope and faith on a necklace for her. And then she was very touched and moved and invited him to visit once he got better. And so we're really giving the power, the fishing rod, to communities to do this. To date, we've probably put out in the multiple millions of intentions and words and bracelets over the past 5 years. So, thank you. So the last slide I'm going to leave you with, and I already mentioned this earlier, is if you ask me what one of my big takeaways has been over the last 5 years, because there's been a lot of, I showed you kind of the highlights, but there's definitely been a lot of lows when we're running out of money, or when people aren't doing what they're supposed to do, or just other things that have been pretty challenging. This was me on a plane headed north to Mount Shasta, and I just had this moment that actually, our struggles and our challenges, you can look at them as resenting them, or you can look at them as they're there because they're going to help you figure something out. They're going to help you find your purpose and your truth and your strength. And so with that, thank you so much.